I'm back in England with Dad at the moment, and I know you all love listening to his stories, as does everyone. So, last time we sat down, we talked about your life growing up as a child in the Second World War, and everybody really enjoyed listening to those stories. So I thought we would lead on from there after the war and how you got into your career. So for those of you who don't know, my whole family worked in TV production, and there's quite a lot of stories. It's quite an interesting past. So we thought we would start right at the beginning. But funnily enough, as we were planning this yesterday, one of Dad's friends, Barry, who was he was an editor, no? He was
he was a videotape editor.
You will have all have seen his work because Barry was the editor for the Bohemian Rhapsody video from Queen. So he sent through Dad a photo yesterday of Dad in a TV studio with his headphones on, doing his thing. You were a floor manager at the time, weren't you? Yeah. And I recognised that it had been a screenshot from a YouTube video. So we actually found that video, and it's quite a good clip. So I'm going to play that now so you can see it. And this is Dad in, what year was it?
1980 something.
1984, I think it was.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Or 85. I was
middle 80s.
Yeah. So here's a little clip of Dad hard at work.
Brings people with me.
I also advise people that it's going to get extremely warm in here during the next hour and a half. Extremely warm. We've had to kill the air because we need the smoke. And without the air, it gets just a little bit warm. So if you want to get comfortable now, do so. You people in front are going to be extremely uncomfortable, but you're going to look great. Okay?
It's a good start to a show, isn't it?
How about that? Right, so first of all, I think we should get on with the show. And I would ask a big welcome for Mr. Carl Perkins.
So you started very early working in TV production. Do you want to go through with me how you actually got into it at the very beginning, and how old were you?
Yeah, let me take you back to the beginning. I had to leave school when I was 14. My parents needed the money. So I left 14, had to get a job. We lived about 12 miles outside of London at the time, and the only job I could get was as a messenger or a runner at a newsreel company in London called Pathy News, famous newsreel company, Pathy.
So was this before TVs?
TV was quite a few years away. During the war, the small service that the BBC had stopped, and they weren't up and running for another couple of years. And then it was only black and white, and there was only the BBC with one channel at that time when it eventually came about. So it was quite a long way away. And in those days, the cinema was the big. Everybody went to the cinema, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and often you'd queue up outside the cinema to get in and see the films. And every cinema, in between, there was always 2 films, would have a newsreel, and it would be the sort of news of the day, filmed from all over the world, wherever it was. And it went out on a Monday, and then they changed for the updated one on the Thursday. Okay. So that was how you got your news, or through a newspaper or the radio. So I was working with Pathy News at that time, and my first, I suppose, my jobs were to take film to various places all over London.
How?
Usually by bus or walking. I'd go to all the most of the embassies in London. I used to regularly go to the embassies with film, or collect film from the embassies, which were from their countries. All the government offices, the Foreign Office, the War Office, I was always in and out of those offices, collecting and taking film. Okay. I suppose my first big job at that time, and as I said, this was 1947, everything was still rationed, food, clothes, petrol, everything was rationed. It was a very austere time. And it was November. I started in the August, and in November there was going to be a big event, the biggest event after the war at that time. And Princess Elizabeth, later to become Queen Elizabeth II, was getting married.
Okay.
And she was marrying Philip of Greece, Prince Philip, of course. And that was to be at Westminster Abbey. And it was a very grey November day, and I think it was about November the 19th or the 20th. I know it was a Thursday. Very grim. They closed off all the streets all around Westminster Abbey. Everything was closed for the traffic, etc., which was going to be the procession, so forth. And I was told to go down to Westminster Abbey and wait outside the West Door.
Okay.
So I made my way down there, and the policeman said, "What are you doing?" and all the rest. And I said, "I'm waiting." I'm told him I was with Patty News, and he said, "Okay, you stay in that corner." And they were not so sensitive to security as they are now. So eventually, after all the music and the cheers and everything else, one of the cameramen came out with, I always remember, there were 3 cans of exposed film within the cans.
Yeah.
And what I had to do, I had to run from Westminster Abbey to Wardour Street, which is about a mile away, right across London, through Trafalgar Square, up across Piccadilly, down Shaftesbury Avenue, into Wardour Street, where Patty News had its headquarters.
With the only copy of
It
the
was
royal
the only
wedding.
film. That's the only film at that time. So,
Okay.
so I got the film into the laboratories.
Did you see the Queen? Did you see the wedding?
I didn't see any of the wedding. I saw none of the wedding.
Okay.
I saw none of the wedding. Nothing at all. All I got was a policeman saying, "You've got to stand there." I always remember that. So I did. And the film is processed. It went up to the editing room. They edited it, put the commentary on, the voiceover, with a man called Bob Danvers Walker, no longer with us. He was at commentary. And it was then shipped, I didn't do it, shipped to the Leicester Square Odeon that afternoon, so people who paid to go to the cinema that day could see the royal wedding. The only people could see the royal wedding. There was no TV.
Right.
So the first time it had been seen was in this
Leicester
giant
Odeon.
cinema in Leicester Square. And that was my first big job,
Wow.
running. A year later, and it was a year later, I was told to go down to the Queen Victoria Memorial. Although we don't, outside Buckingham Palace, there's a giant memorial to Queen Victoria. It's known as the wedding cake. From the top, if you look down from the top, it looks like a highly decorated wedding cake, and everybody in the business knows it as a wedding cake. I was to go down there. I had no idea why I was going down there, and it was a terribly rainy day. The 19th or the 20th of November, it was a Monday, I remember that. And when I got down there, one of our cameramen was on the memorial with his tripod, and there were all these press people, stills photographers, big whole plate cameras, the whole lot. And what they were doing, what I didn't know because I didn't know the news, Prince Charles had been born the night before on the Sunday.
Right.
He'd been born that night, Sunday night. And all the press were there, hoping someone from the royal family were out the balcony. No way they were going to come out. It was so bloody cold, it was ridiculous. No way they were going to. And they waited for the guy to come out into the forecourt of Buckingham Palace to put the notice up to say that Charles had been born.
Right.
So we got that. So while I was there waiting, and they said, "You've got to wait because I've got to run from there now back to Wardour Street with the film, with the film again." But while I was there waiting, somebody said to me, "Do you think you could find us a cup of tea?" And it was one of the press people. And there was no cafes around, there was nothing. And we didn't have mobile catering in those days. So I went up Buckingham Palace Road, the side of the palace, and there was a couple of little streets off to the side. And I went in, I found an old cafe, and I went in there and I said, "Is there any chance of getting a few cups of tea?" So the guy said to me, "What do you mean?" And I told him the story. All these guys had been down on the memorial virtually all night and they got nothing. So he said, "What I can do for you, I can make a bucket of tea." And he got an enamel bucket out, and I'll never forget it. He made this bucket of tea with the milk in. Sugar was still rationed. He gave me a little cup of sugar, and he gave me a box of cups. And I had to manhandle this all back to the Queen Victoria Memorial. I took it up, and the guys were, and I earned about £5 that day, which was a fortune. I was only getting £1.50 a week in wages. So I earned a lot of, and that was my very first experience, that first 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
So, and I was still 14 at the time. I wasn't
Wow.
15 for another couple of months.
So then eventually you went and worked on a ship for a few years, didn't you? And then you came back to TV.
Yeah, well, I did. After about 3 or 4 years at Pathy, I went into fashion. I was with a fashion photographer.
Oh yes, you were with the photographer, weren't you?
Yeah, we had a studio now. Used to just assist in the studio, often sweeping the floor, mostly processing the plates, the big whole plate negatives and that sort of thing, making up the chemicals. and working in the dark room half the time. So I did that for about 2 years, and it got very boring. So my father at that time was in the Merchant Navy, had been in the Merchant Navy for about 30 years. And I thought, well, I'd like to do that. So I managed to get a job with the P&O line. And I'd never been out the country. Most of us had never been out the country or grew up during the war. So I got this job, and I went to join the ship at Tilbury, and it was this 23,000 ton white liner called the Strathmore. And we left Tilbury 2 days before Christmas. Mm-hmm. So my first, that Christmas was at sea, and then the next port of call, 8 days later, we were in Portside, and then 3 weeks later, we're in Australia.
Oh, wow.
So we went Portside, down to Aden, from Aden across to Bombay, then down to Colombo, across the Indian Ocean to Perth, or Fremantle as it was. Then we go round the Australian bight to Adelaide, then round to Melbourne, and then round to Sydney. And at Sydney, we were there for 8 days, while they loaded up cargo, mostly lamb and wool, and come back. That was a 3-month trip. Wow. And I did that for 3 years. Okay. So all those trips in and out of Australia, which was fine. And came back in 1954. I read in the paper somewhere that commercial television was about to start in this country, in the UK. And I found the address. I applied for one of the jobs as they termed it in those days, a video operator. That was how it was termed. It means cameraman. So I applied for that, and I had 6 or 7 interviews, and eventually got the job as a trainee cameraman. Okay. And we then trained in some studios with all the other trainees for 3 months before commercial television started. And the very first day of commercial television was September the 22nd, 1955. And we never had, and it was all black and white. And I can remember the very first commercial that went out on British television ever was for S.R. Gibbs toothpaste. I always remember that. Everyone cheered when it went out. So that was it. So I was then in television for the rest of my life. Okay. And I say the rest of my life. It was, the rest of my life. So eventually, after about 7 or 8 years, 8 years, I suppose, I joined a company called Intertel. And it was the only, what we call a facilities company in the UK at that time. They used to do work for anyone who wanted work, and mostly foreign clients and that. So we did a lot of work for the Americans, and we were all in and out of Europe doing shows, winter sports and that sort of thing. Every winter we spent 2 weeks in St. Moritz, which was doing the bobsleigh and the Cresta runs. We did the Winter Olympics in Innsbruck at that time, and so on, and all these big snow events. So that went on for 3 years. We went into Russia, we went to all sorts of places. And we managed, that company, 2 years after I started, they acquired some old television, colour television test bed cameras. I managed to get them working. And we built a truck and put the cameras in, and we started doing colour television a year before it came to the UK, mostly for the American market. So we were all over Europe again doing these colour TV shows, which was wonderful, unbelievable. We did all the David Frost shows he was doing. I remember Tom Jones when he did his very first colour show at the London Palladium. We did that, we were on, and so on. So a lot of firsts with those cameras, a lot of firsts. Okay,
right. Now I'm going to throw some names at you because I've heard a lot of these stories. Actually, not all of them, because you told one earlier that I'd never heard before. The bucket of tea. I never heard about that. So what I'm going to do is throw some names at you, and you're going to tell me about meeting these people and working with them. So first of all, I'm going to ask you to tell me something about, who should I choose? Muhammad Ali.
Oh, what a lovely guy. What a lovely man. How we miss him.
Tell me about that photo, because we've got a very curious photo of you in the ring with Muhammad Ali.
It was
and you've got your headphones on. Yeah. But if you actually look close, he's wearing dress trousers and socks, and he's not wearing a boxing outfit.
No, he's not. No, he brought over to do a commercial. And we
Okay.
did the commercial in the studio, and it had to be in a boxing ring.
Right.
And I had to, so it was the 30-second commercial. It could have been for a newspaper. I can't remember what it was. And what I'm doing, I'm going over the words he's got to say. And he's doing all this boxing stuff. And he was just so lovely. What a lovely man he was. And the interesting thing, as a cameraman, I'd worked on his big fight with Henry Cooper.
Yeah.
I'd worked on another fight, two fights in Britain with him. One in London Olympia, I think it was. One at Wembley. We worked in one in Frankfurt and one in Munich. All with
You must have known him fairly well. I mean, he must have known who you were.
I don't know whether he knew. He was always a gentleman to all of us. All
Okay.
of us. And I remember we were doing, with the colour cameras, we were in Frankfurt, and your mum was on the job. She was visual mixing the job. Mum was on the job. And they wanted someone to get in the ring to do a colour balance, which is, we always had to colour balance these cameras under the lighting. And Muhammad Ali come in, and it was obviously long before the match and everything else, the boxing match. And he got up in the ring with your mum. We never got a photo of it, which is so sad.
Yeah.
And he was he was a lovely man, just a lovely man, a lot of fun, and that was it.
Okay. How about the Beatles?
Oh God, yeah, I did work. We did a lot of work with them.
You did a lot of things in the UK with them, didn't you? A lot of things that they filmed.
Yeah. The American networks had a show called Shindig and another show called Hullabaloo.
Okay.
And they went out in America, and they were all the pop stars of the day, went out every week. And they were big shows, really big shows. And we managed to get work for both of them. And it was all the big British pop stars at that time.
Right.
And we'd go to Shepperton Studios, maybe 2 or 3 days. Brian Epstein would come. Brian Epstein, who was a Beatles manager in that day, managed a lot of these artists, and he was always there. And we'd shoot all day, right into the evening with all Marion Faithfull, Billy Free, you name it. They were all there, Jerry and the Pacemakers, the whole lot. So we worked with all these big stars of the 60s and 70s, and the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
Yeah, that went on for a couple of years doing those shows. 1968, it was February, and we got a call that we were going down to Twickenham Studios, down in Twickenham, to do a thing with the Beatles. So we said, okay, fine, lovely. Black and white cameras, no colour in those at that particular time. So we went into the Twickenham Studios, and all the Beatles came in about 1 o'clock, I suppose it was, set up, and it was just a big set, Ringo with his drums and a couple of Sans Rossums and all that. And we proceeded to record, I think it was 12 different numbers over the next 12, 14 hours, whatever it was. And the reason they did that was, it was really the forerunner of all the videos that you send out now. It was easier for Brian Epstein, who was their manager, to get copies of all these videos and send them out to all the networks and TV stations around the world than have them travel out there.
Right.
So everybody had a copy of it. So that's really where the
Okay.
videos really came from, you know, doing it that way. So, but there was one lovely thing round about 10 o'clock that night, and we're working hard, you know, they were very good, they'd do everything you want, there was no panics, no tantrums, they were just nice guys. John, I'm sure it was John Lennon, said, is there any chance we can get some food? And one of the stagehands said, well, there's a fish and chip shop just down the road next to the station. He said, is there any chance we can get some? So he sent, production manager sent someone down there, and they came back with, I think it were 40 lots of fish and chips. It was for the crew and them. And I always remember, they gave them each to John, Paul, Ringo and George on the stage. And the director said, can we continue playing or rehearsing while they're eating? And there was a famous picture of Ringo playing his drums and feeding himself chips. And there was a book, the anthology of the Beatles by a guy called Mike Lewisham. It's a really big anthology. I've got a copy in there. And he's got really the whole history of the Beatles right up until they split up. Everything, every show they ever did. And over a number of months, he kept calling me, saying, have I got any stories? And of course, you can't remember everything. But it's
Oh, I remember when he was calling, yeah.
he's done it. You know,
Yeah.
he's thanked me for it in the book. So there were a lot, and then I did some years later. It wasn't all that long ago. Somebody called me from the States and said, "Can you set up and do a one-camera shoot in Liverpool with us?" And I said, "Yeah, when is it? What is it?" And so he said, "It's Ringo. He's going back to Liverpool."
Didn't you go to Ringo's mum's house or something?
Yeah, no,
Tea?
no. What it was on the shoot, when we got up there, there was Stanley, the director. There was Ringo. There was a cameraman, the sound man, me, production manager, and driver.
Yeah.
And Ringo, of course, and his dad, who was also Harry.
Okay.
So Harry would say, "Look, we go here, we do that." So when we'd finished shooting, I always remember we finished shooting, Harry said, "Everyone back to my house for a cup of tea." So I drive them back to, and it's a lovely bungalow which Ringo had bought for his dad. Lovely bungalow. So we're all sitting there having a cup of tea, waiting to get back to London. We were finished for the day. And his dad turns around and said, "Would you like to come and meet..." Who was it now?
Cilla Black.
Oh yeah, he said, "Would you like to come meet Cilla's mum? She lives next door." And we said, "Look, we'd love to, but we've really got to go." So that was a nice little shoot. That really was. So that was fun.
Oh.
And then I did the interview with John in the studio, John Lennon.
Yeah.
And
Yoko.
and Yoko just after they got married.
Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned this before. Do you remember my second driving instructor, the old man?
Yeah. Yes.
He was quite old when he taught me to drive. I was only 17 at the time, and I think I was his last student, but he was also John Lennon's driving instructor.
Oh really?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
because John Lennon's auntie lived in Weybridge.
That's
and
right, yeah.
He learnt to drive in Weybridge when he was at his auntie's. So this guy taught John Lennon, obviously early on in his career,
Yeah.
and then taught me at the end of his career.
Well, John had a lovely white, wherever he went, he had this big white Rolls Royce, really big one. And on the boot at the back, it was like a boomerang there, which was an aerial, shaped like a boomerang.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to somebody else. Now, what about Michael Jackson? I know that Mum's got a Michael Jackson story. She met him and had to have a chat with him about what he wanted her to focus on. Mum was a vision mixer, so she would edit live to music. She was specialised in music, so she did a lot of live concerts and edited between shots. And so she had quite an in-depth meeting, just her and Michael Jackson. And she said it was a bit awkward because part of his nose was sort of fell off. And she didn't quite know whether she should tell him or not. Yeah. But she decided to be very British and ignore it and pretend it hadn't happened. Yeah. But you've got a Michael Jackson.
Well, that was a famous story, the bit of his nose falling. Everyone knew about it. They were all told to not say anything.
Oh, okay.
So we're not saying anything.
Okay.
No, we were doing a music award show down in Monte Carlo. It was an annual music award show, and various stars were getting awards for whatever it was, best song, best something. And I was floor managing down there, and Michael Jackson was coming on. He was going to get 2 awards. Took him aside just before he went on stage and explained to him that he was going on, there'd be a lot of applause. He's going to get an award from somebody, and there'll be a second award. So don't leave the stage when you got your first one, because someone else will come and he gets his award and it's all this sort of thing. And he looks around, he knows the second one's coming, and presents him with the second one. He said, "Oh, it's so heavy. Oh, it's so heavy."
Could you hold this for me? Would you want? Sorry.
I thought, oh my God, get him off the stage.
Bob Hope, you worked with Bob Hope quite a bit,
several times. Yeah, I did. We went up to
you
Sweden.
travelled the world with him, didn't you?
Not really. We travelled a lot around Europe with him. We went. I first worked with him in London a number of years ago. Strange enough, doing a show at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club.
Oh, okay.
Which is a most odd place for him to be, but he came in and we grabbed people off the street to be an audience. About 2 or 3 years later, I got a call from the producer in America saying, "We're doing a Bob Hope show in Europe. Bob wants you on this stage." Americans call me a stage manager. In England, you're a floor manager. Can you do it? I said, "Well, give me the dates. I'll tell you, I'm available." So anyhow, there was another English person on the crew, Johnny Rook, famous lighting director. Everyone in America knew Johnny Rook. So the two of us flew to Berlin, where we connected with the rest of the crew. And we were at the old Tempelhof airport, and we did a big show there. I can't remember all the
Why
cast.
did you do a show at an airport?
It was all for the American troops, and there
Okay.
was a lot of American Air Force and everything, and all these
So it
places.
was an Air Force base?
They're
It was
all Air
It was
Force
an
base.
American military base?
It's all
Okay.
So it's all American
That's
bases.
doing a concert in
So-
Gatwick Airport, okay.
So we did the show there. We'd been in Berlin, I think, 2 or 3 days, whatever that. And then we all got this giant American, looked like converting bomb, and no windows or anything else, canvas seats. And we didn't know where we were flying. I didn't know at the time. And we flew to, not far, we flew to Frankfurt. So we were there for 2 or 3 days. We repeated, we did another show in a big hangar there. We got back in this plane, didn't know where we were going until we got out. We were in Munich this time. And then we came back to the UK to, I can't think of the airfield, Mildenhall, which is a big American base. So we came to the UK. We did a very big show in one of the hangars. And there we flew to Moscow, did one at the American Embassy in Moscow, and came back and finished, and that was it. But I love this story. I mean, that was about 10 days, 2 weeks. But the producer said to me, he said, don't forget to put your invoice in for my services. I had to phone him. I said, where do you want me to send the invoice? He said, send it to me at NBC in California. It was at the time, somewhere in Hollywood somewhere. So I sent the invoice, and eventually this check comes through. And when I look, it's signed by Bob Hope. I said, I'm going to phone the producer. I phoned him. His name was Cyril. And I said, Cyril, I've got the check from Bob, and it is signed by Bob. Why does he have to sign it? He said he hopes people will keep them as souvenirs. I said, no way. Yeah, I thought that was lovely. Yeah.
You could have copied it. You could have taken a photo of it.
He said people do it. Well, I got the scripts from both those big shows there, and also Bob signed them all for me. They're in the library there.
Okay. And a couple more. Let's ask you about. Well, you've obviously worked with the Queen on and off quite a few times, haven't you, Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Did she asked your permission for something once, didn't she?
She didn't quite ask my permission. There was a undersea cable laid from the UK. It went across the Atlantic to Canada.
Yeah.
It went overland to Canada, right across the Pacific to Fiji, across the ocean to Australia. Went across Australia and then down to New Zealand. And she was going to inaugurate it. And what it was, we were in a big hotel in Knightsbridge, and I was asked if I'd go along, because I always dress properly for the thing, like I have to put a suit on or something. When we started the programme, she announced what I was going to do, and so inaugurating this lovely line. Each of the films were about 10 minutes long, and she didn't want to stand up throughout the whole of this. So she turned around to me after we'd had the first rehearsal. She said, and you will tell me when I can sit down, won't you? And I thought, the Queen to ask you if I can sit down. Yeah, lovely lady.
And you've been to Buckingham Palace quite a few times, haven't you?
There was going to be a big banquet of all the presidents and prime ministers and so on, a big banquet. And there was a big firework display on the roof to end it all. And
but you obviously wandered around a bit, because I remember you telling me that you found a pub, a bar?
Yeah, I found a bar in there, yeah.
Buckingham Palace has a little bar?
Yeah, you've seen Buckingham Palace, you've got the forecourt, you drive in, you go through the arch, and then the palace is all around you. It's like a quadrangle inside, and then you got the back gardens behind, lovely gardens.
Yeah.
You walk down there. We'd set up the cameras where they were going to be. We're going to do 2 or 3 rehearsals, and Mike, the director, said, do you know anywhere around here we can eat? And I said, well, the only place I know is in Victoria Street, just around the corner. So I said, well, let me see if they have a staff canteen here. So I saw one of the butlers, or where they was walking up and down. I said, look, is there a cafe or a staff restaurant? He said, oh yeah. He said, you can use the bar. I said, where is it? So he said, I'll have to show you. And he showed me how to go. It's just a warren. I went down these stairs to, I suppose, a basement. And you walked in, and this basement, it was like a department store. It was covered that thick in huge rugs, beautiful rugs, that thick. And they'd obviously been presented from all over the world. And we went through there, and then we went through a maze of corridors and big rooms and everything else. And eventually he said, it's there, in the proper bar. And
What, with like tables and chairs and stuff?
small tables and chairs, and they had Baxter's soup all along the walls, cans of Baxter's soup. I can see it now. So I went back and I said, I found a bar. They said, where? I said, downstairs. I said, do you want to come? So they said, yeah, I'd love to. So I actually found my way through there again, went to the bar, and we had drinks, had fruit juice. They did hot soup, they did spirits. They didn't do wine, strange enough. They did beer, and they did spirits, and they did soup. So that was the bar where I found a buck in the back. I told people the story, and people didn't believe it.
Was it you had to pay?
Oh yeah, you had to
like
pay.
a little
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah, but the interesting thing was, Baxter's soups is a Scottish soup.
Yeah.
And there were cans of all around it, so like where you'd have the
decorations.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. So it was nice to have done that.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it was nice. I've got a photo here which was taken in the late 80s. It's where Prince Philip came, a famous photo of me with Prince Philip, same studio. And we got a call one day, could we all come in on the Sunday to record an interview? So all the crew, it was only a small crew, so we all turned up on the Sunday, not knowing who it was. And around about 10 o'clock in the morning, car doors up outside the studio, and out gets Richard Burton. For those of you who don't know who Richard Burton was, he was the man who was married to Elizabeth Taylor. He came in the studio, and his chauffeur came in with him, and the chauffeur was carrying a little wooden box, about so big. And I greeted them and said, you know, take you up to makeup, sort of, took him up to makeup. Eventually he comes down and he goes to the loo, I think he goes off to the loo, and Norma, the makeup girl, comes in. She said, do you know what was in the box? And we said, no. She said, well, we sat down, and the chauffeur opened it up. He had a bottle of vodka, a bucket of ice and a glass.
A bucket of ice?
A bucket, he had
In the
his own,
box?
he had his own bucket of ice. So he had a drink. So he did that, but it's fine, do what you like. The interview finished about 10 to 12, quarter to 12 on a Sunday. And in those days, the pubs never used to open to 12 o'clock, midday. And we had a pub, it's still there, the pub opposite, called The Hope. So he said, anyone fancy a drink? So we said, well, yeah. He said, come, let's all go over the pub. So he took everybody over the pub for a drink.
Nice.
Yeah, lovely man, lovely man.
So I hope you've enjoyed listening to Dad's stories. I always enjoy it, and there's always more. Every time you tell me something, I think I've heard this before, and then you tell something like the bucket
Oh,
of tea
well,
one.
there's lots more, I promise you. Some I've forgotten, some people remind me what they are, but no, there's a load. Hey, come on, there's 45 years of them.
More than that.
Well, there are more than that, but I only want to remember 45 years.
Okay.
No,
So,
it goes.
yeah, if you've enjoyed this, let us know. If you'd like to hear more stories, let us know, and we can always do that. And I'm always looking for a chance to pop back to England and spend some time here, so it'd be great if I can come back and film some more. Let me know. Thanks for watching.
Ciao.
Bye.